welcome to our final episode of Empire Industries case study from chaos to clarity, why we hired virtual assistants. I'm Pete Newbig, CEO of VPM Solutions, here with Steve Rosenberg, CEO of Empire Industries. And so today we're going to talk about our results. So first episode we talked about why we decided to get virtual assistants. Second one was how we prepared and what we did to prepare. The third one was the results of actually hiring the people, and then what we ended up finding and all the different positions we hired for those folks. And now we're talking about a little bit about the results. So the first main thing was that our revenue increased.
Yeah.
Right? So by hiring these virtual assistants, how did our revenue increase?
Well, I mean, from a growth perspective, we were able to close more doors because, again, we were able to really utilize the right person, right seat model. Again, I was a big believer that salespeople need to sell, not do contracts and paperwork and all that stuff. It has to be done, but I didn't think that was the skill set of a salesperson. So we were able to close more deals because the BDMs were out in the field actually closing. And that was the first way. The second way is we kept our clients happier, which decreased the churn on the back end. And so we didn't lose as many doors because not only were they happier, but they would buy more properties and refer more people without us having to market. So I mean, it was a multi-pronged approach the way we did it.
Yep. And then lastly, we were able to focus on some of the low-hanging fruit that we weren't able to focus on, mainly sales.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times before we hired the virtual assistants, we used to have a lot of our employee clients, our owner clients would sell property and let us know at the last minute, or they'd buy a property and then they would just give it to us to manage. Yeah. And we started capturing more of those sales. So that's how revenue increased. Another result that we had was stress level.
Yeah.
So if you remember, I used to take a stress level. I used to meet with our property managers one-on-one, and one of my weekly questions to them was, what's your stress level on a scale of 1 to 10? And it'd be like 10 plus, 10 plus, 10 plus.
40.
Right? 40. And after we hired the virtual assistants, and it took some time to train, don't get me wrong, we didn't hire them and like 10 days later, everything was bliss. Mm-hmm. It took 90 days of hard work to implement them, right? And train them. But after those 90 days, the stress level went from a 10 to a 2. Now what this did was it reduced our employee churn.
Yeah.
So our good employees stayed.
Yeah.
Right? Because they weren't picking up slack for all the employees that weren't doing their job and they're getting stressed out. They weren't putting in tons of hours anymore. They were still working hard, but they weren't putting in 50, 60, 80-hour weeks.
Right.
And then the main thing was we actually, Steve, you came up with this. We actually changed the term. We went from a reactive property manager, we went to a proactive, and do you remember what we called them? Client relations specialist.
Yeah.
We took the moniker of property management off and created a client relations specialist so that we can give this idea that we are more than a gopher on property management, and that they actually had more authority when talking to our owner clients.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that we instilled in the, we'll call them property managers for this conversation, was that they were in charge of a team, and that they had the ability, the authority to do what was best in the interest of the company, in the interest of the client, in the interest of everybody. They had the autonomy to do that, but they really, we paid them to be managers. And I know some of the things we did whenever something came in for us, again, we were operating mostly in Mexico, but whenever something came in, it went to Mexico first. That was tier 1. And we realized it was an 80-20 rule. 80% of the problems could be handled at tier 1 with the virtual assistants. They didn't know how to do it. We trained them so that next time the phone rang and it was a problem, they could answer that. So 80% was handled there. The 20% were the ones that the property managers or the client relations specialists, they were able to handle. And those are the ones like, if we don't answer this, there's a lawsuit coming. An owner's gonna fire us. But normally a property manager typically is so buried, they never get to that 20% because they're buried with, how do I log into my portal? Why do I have to pay my rent on the first? All these things they're important and they have to be answered, but they shouldn't be answered by that person. And I just go back to the right person, right seat. That's how we were able to say, okay, this has to be done, but it doesn't have to be done by you. We want you handling my house flooded and I need to get this resolved with the insurance company ASAP.
Yeah, when we hired the virtual assistants, we actually created them out and made them experts.
Yeah.
And so we had an expert in collections and evictions. And they handle all the collections and evictions. They had KPIs they had to hit. They met with the team leads and they went over those KPIs and they would talk about why they're not hitting the KPIs or what they can do better to hit those KPIs. But that person became much better than the property manager ever did, because that's all they were focused on.
Right.
And so by being able to hire more people, we were able to get people to focus on each aspect of the business, which then they realized, okay, this is the 20% of the escalation that I got to talk to the property manager.
Right.
And then the final thing is our profitability. We went from making very little profit to a much larger profit. Our payroll went from about 54% to about 32% of revenue. So just kind of, we hired more people and our payroll went down. Right? And then we hired 18 people, we told you in the last video, but our office costs never went higher.
Yeah, our footprint was not more. And again, I just go back to the stress levels were lower. We were giving better service. You know, we were firing on all cylinders. And for those of you that own a company, there's something to be said when you go into the office and you just know it's going to be just one of those days that you're going to dread because you've got to deal with toxic people in the company, or you have an issue or this or that. And then the difference of when you go in and you just know the company's firing on all cylinders. There's a big mental shift when that happens. And then now you actually feel like you are a business owner that's running a business that's actually functional and growing, and you're not just like up to here and barely making it. And I think that stress level, you and I mean, everyone's been there, but I think that we, essentially cracked the code of how to do that. And I honestly think that was a big reason why we were an acquisition target of somebody to purchase us, because we had such a smooth running company.
And I just remember people telling me we were crazy on what we were going to do with these virtual assistants. And
you're crazy till someone does it.
and makes it successful. And I believe that we were very successful in doing it, and now there's a lot of people that are following our blueprint for this. And so hopefully you found this series educational, and that you're ready to move forward for a virtual assistant. If you'd like to talk to me directly and do a free consultation, reach out to me. My email is pete@vpmsolutions.com. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.